victory Friday. The Bears defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Courtney, is there anything in the secondary that we should keep our eyes on as far as roster battles? We know that, yesterday's game, Reddy Stewart had a nice play, a couple of nice plays, Adrian Colbert as well. Anything stands out in the secondary as far as battles?
It's hard to envision that there's going to be any of those guys making the roster just with the depth. Like, you've got your three starters at cornerback between Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, and then Kyler Gordon. And then I don't know how you can't have, of course, Jalen Jones, Terrell Smith, but then what you saw from Greg Stroman and Josh Blackwell in the absence of Kyler Gordon and getting some good run with the first team unit throughout camp. It's so hard for me to think that any of the DBs, any of the corners, first and foremost, beyond that, could crack this depth chart with how, the best depth that they've had since Matt Eberflus got here in 2022. And I have them carrying four safeties. I don't have Adrian Colbert on this roster or Tarvarius Moore. It did come down to me. I was watching that group pretty closely yesterday. I ended up when I went into the game, I had 5 safeties on my roster. Seeing Noah Sewell play yesterday, he didn't do much, but he was out there. That ended up having me, that was a last-minute switch for me, putting 6 linebackers on and taking off a safety, thinking that Colbert will probably end up on the practice squad. I just can't see a way that they cut a 4th-round pick, even though he hasn't done much to prove his availability, his value just yet, because he's been injured. So that was the secondary is once again the strength of this team, but you haven't seen depth like this in this, with any iteration of the Bears under Matt Eberflus. So it's a good position for them to be in, both at cornerback and at safety.
In terms of quarterback, when we talked to Tom Thayer for our weekly hit, the Thayer Thursday, he said he's always leaning for the third guy to be a developmental guy, which would mean Austin Reed over Brett Rippon. What do you think happens there?
That is one of the harder questions that we'll see on Tuesday. Do they want to keep both of them on the practice squad? They like this quarterback room. They really do. And Rippon knows the offense. He was in Seattle for a hot second, but is a multiple year veteran. You don't need to give up a roster spot for him. Certainly there's enough NFL tape out there on him that you can cut him and bring him back on the P squad if you want to. But they've shown, just based on their tendencies the last couple of years, same front office, the offensive staff has changed. They went with the developmental rookie in Tyson Bagent last year over PJ Walker when he was the surprise cut at cut down day. And it obviously was the right call, but they're much more willing to take the guy with the higher upside and keep them in some form of this team. And of course, we know with the emergency quarterback rule, there's always going to be a need for that third quarterback, but also knowing what Brett Rippon provides the Bears from a backup standpoint, but also just like the knowledge of being in that room and the veteran voice that he has in a very young room. That's going to be a big question. I mean, their practice squads are expanded. There's more spaces for a guy like that to get on if they want to keep 2. But I see them keeping. I do think that they end up keeping Austin Reed. I just whether they keep a 4th will be the question that's answered on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. And at the tight end, they're solidified with Komet, Everett, and Lewis. Even though we saw a lot of Carlson and Sweeney, do they have a spot on the practice squad, or is both cut? What happens there?
I think both are the practice squad guys, because I do have them keeping Kari Blasingame on the roster, on the 53 at a fullback. I know I know that Seattle didn't use a fullback during Waldron's 3 seasons there.
He hasn't had a fullback on any team he's been on since 2008.
And you want to keep, and again, this is no slight on Mercedes Lewis, but you have a 40-year-old tight end. You should also have somebody else who can block, but also line up in the slot, the backfield, whatever you want to do with Blasingame, put him on special teams. There's no reason to cut him. You know what I mean? And as much as I like Brendan Bates and Stephen Carlson, those were, 2 guys that really flashed during training camp. I don't think that they keep a 4th tight end and just cut the fullback completely. Not from what I've been hearing the last couple of days. It's not the indication that I've gotten that he will be off the roster.
Take that.
There you go, Hoodie. Your guy is going to be still alive.
Even if it's special teams or just to be able to have someone in there. I heard on the broadcast, and we've been seeing this a little bit, Courtney, here and there where the fullback is still being utilized. San Francisco comes to mind, but another number of other teams employ a fullback on the roster.
They do. And it just didn't happen in Seattle. And that's fine, but he was here before Waldron got here. His contributions, especially on special teams, were already well noted. He's got Richard Hightower vouching for him as a 4-phase special teamer. So that plays a big role in somebody getting onto the roster. And I just look at this situation knowing how many multiple tight end sets that they use, but also the blocking responsibilities that are required of that position group. It just doesn't hurt to keep somebody else who can do it very well at a very high level. And it's demonstrated that throughout, 6-7 years now in the NFL. It does not hurt to keep him on the roster.
In terms of Colin Johnson and some of these other guys that are out, Roddy Stewart, who had the 2 interceptions along with the pick 6 last night, what are the toughest battles that you think Pauls is going to be in his office with his guys, Trey Koziel and Ian Cunningham and Jeff King? They're going to go, we can't cut that guy. Guys, we can't keep everybody. Give me the 2 toughest battles.
Wide receiver 6, which is way down the depth chart, but that was the one that I was struggling with. Is it DeAndre Carter? He played last night, and I know.
Who are the 5? Who are the 5?
The 5: DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, Tyler Scott, Velus Jones. So the 6 I have in my 53 going to DeAndre Carter. Colin Johnson it's a byproduct of injuries. I mean, that's tough, but he had a great game in the Hall of Fame game, and we haven't seen him since. Dante Pettis has the good outing against the Bengals. He's hurt this week. Carter, the availability, but also what he's shown you throughout training camp and the experience on punt return. I don't know if Bears fans are feeling great about the situation at punt returner right now. I mean, there was the muff punt that he had last night. He knows better. The guy's done it nearly 200 times throughout his career. He's a 7-year vet. I think you're going to lean on experience there just to shore up that position for now. Maybe they find a punt returner elsewhere. At some point, whether it's on somebody else's roster currently with cuts. And because remember, initial 53 is not, by Wednesday, that thing could change again. And by week 1, it could change a couple times. But that was one of the harder ones that I went through. And then I don't know if Larry Borum gets onto the roster before the injury, just because of what was going on with the, he's making $3 million as a backup. Last night's really unfortunate for him to go down that way. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up waiving him with an injury settlement, but then who's your swing tackle this year? Who takes that spot initially? Is it Bill Murray? Is it another person who has shown that they can play multiple different spots? Is Karan Amagaji ready to be your swing tackle? That's a tough one in terms of depth, just knowing that was, for as expensive as he was as a backup, he's at least good at being a swing tackle for this team.
As always, Courtney, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Have a great weekend.
Great day.
You too.
Rattle, rattle, thunder, clatter, boom, boom, boom.
Swing tackle.
Don't worry, call the car accident.
David Putney. I need a punt returner. Give me David Putney.
Sure. Why not? Let's get your thoughts, Bears fans. On a Bears Victory Friday, the Bears win. They're 4-0 in the preseason. So fill in the blank. Cap and I want to know, what do you know about the Chicago Bears? Based on everything you know, the Chicago Bears are blank. In 2 minutes on Kap and J.